so welcome. This is the first class of a series of classes in a course we're going to call SAO. SOW, which means Servant of the World. And the idea is this. I think you know we're here near in the Arizona, what do you call it? Desert? Not really. Beautiful green Arizona place. And southwest. And we hope to build a university here. A Buddhist university and retreat center. And then one of the parts of the university will be a business school that we're going to call the Enlightened Business School. And for about 5 years we've been doing courses called Enlightened Business Institute, which was started in New York City. And that institute is based around a book called The Diamond Cutter, which most of you know about. And that book was an explanation basically about ancient Buddhist principles in modern business. And the idea of that book was using ancient Buddhist ideas to show that the best way to make money in a large company is to be ethical and to treat other people well. And that's all based on a deeper idea called, in that book it was called the potential, and which in normal Buddhist terms is called emptiness. So that book's idea was that if a business person knew about this idea called emptiness, then they could use that idea or potential to actually be more successful in their business, make more money basically, serve more people, and that the only way you could do that, if things are empty, or if things are available to be everything possible, then you need some kind of power which projects onto those things something good, and that's how you treat other people, how ethical you are in your business. So there was a book called The Diamond Cutter that has now sold about $500,000, I think, in copies around the world. It's on its 8th printing, I think, now. And it's been translated into Chinese and Portuguese and Dutch and German, Spanish, and it's being read widely throughout the world. It's a big hit in Taiwan right now. And so the Enlightened Business Institute was sort of formed around that concept in that book. And then we'd like to expand the Institute to have other business courses of a wide variety. So tonight begins a series of courses that we call SAO, or Servant of the World. The idea of Servant of the World is that the world on the whole gives all of us a lot, you know, and I think the more you get into meditation, the deeper you get into meditation, the deeper you understand your spiritual side, then the more you appreciate that we are all supported by the world around us, you know, like we owe a lot to the entire world. Like you just sitting here in a house, people are working tonight to send electricity to this house so we can have this class. People worked really hard to get the wood ready to make the floor. People labored very difficult work to make the walls of this house, to make the windows. Somebody worked overtime to make the clothes that we wear. And even the food we eat is the result. Lama Supa had a beautiful talk one night about how many creatures have given their lives to feed us, to give us the food that we eat. So we buy a box of Cheerios in the store, and we come home and we use it. And I think the normal American idea about that is that, well, I paid for it, and so I owe it. I own it. And in a way, I don't owe anybody else anything because I paid for this box of Cheerios. And so it's just the barter system of the world, you know. I go to work for 8 hours, I produce something, somebody else goes to work for 8 hours, they produce something, and we trade time. But if you really get deep into meditation, if you get deep into a spiritual way of life, the deeper you get, I think the more you see that the amount of pain and suffering and work of other people that they put out just so we can eat and have a place to stay and study or be with our friends is intense. It's extraordinary. I mean, if you really, really counted up all the hours of people's lives to give us just the basic necessities of life, I think if you thought about it carefully, you would begin to feel some kind of obligation to pay back the world for what it's giving you all the time. So we're in like a very special time in history. We're in a very unusual country historically, and we're comfortable, and we have all that we need. And it's a result of thousands and thousands of people working and giving us their, it's one thing, we tend to think of it as working, but if you really think about it carefully, they're giving you their life's time. You know, how many hours will their heart beat? They have spent so many hours to give to you and me. So the idea of servant of the world is, if you really grasped how many people have spent heartbeats of their precious lives to allow us to live at all, then you would want to give them back something. You would want to return something. And the premise of this whole seminar, say, this whole course, is going to be that you can't feel happy or fulfilled in your life until you begin to pay back the world. Okay? Like you will never feel totally fulfilled, or you'll never be able to be really satisfied with your life until you recognize that every other living being around us is giving up their life so we can be happy, so we can live. And until you do something to pay them back, until you make some effort to repay the world on a whole, I don't think you can ever be content or satisfied with your life. In Sanskrit, there's a word, Bhogapavagatam. Oh, it's a little complicated, but anyway, it splits here. And before that it says Rupendriyatman. Yeah, Rupendriyatmakam. But anyway, this is from an old Yoga Sutra actually. The Yoga Sutra. It's about, I don't know, 16 centuries old. And it says you can do two things with your life. You can either Bhoga or you can Apabhagata. Bhoga means you can use your life to just consume things. You can expend your entire existence on this planet simply collecting money and then consuming objects. So you're like just a mouth with a stomach, basically, and then an excretory function, you know? I mean, you can spend your life like that. You work, you feed yourself, you consume items, they go through your system, they are expelled, and so you're really just like a garbage disposal, really. I mean, you could go through a whole lifetime like that, which is called Bhoga. Apabhagata means, or you can use the same world and the same resources to reach contentment for yourself, happiness for yourself. And that comes through, Apabhagata comes from giving something back to the world. And the premise of this course, the premise of this series of courses is that if you start to try to give back to the world, you will find a new career. Okay? You'll find a new career. In other words, you know, most people, and I know because I worked in a corporation for 15 years in New York, most people are working for their immediate needs. Most people are working for the money they need to live that month. And that's what most people are doing. And very few people are really very happy with their work. Okay? Like very few people are very happy with their employment. In fact, the word employment suggests some kind of slavery. They're employing you. Employ means to use somebody, right? Like I employ this machine to do a job. And so to be employed means to be used by someone else. And if you work in a large corporation or a company, you get that feeling of being used. Sometimes it can be very impersonal. And very few people are doing what they want to do. A certain number of people like what they do because they don't have anything else to do. You see, a lot of people that I met in corporate life, there's a certain percentage, I say maybe 50%, don't want to be there. They'd rather be doing something else. There's another 30% that wants to be there, but only because they don't have anything else to do. You know, if you told them, go home for 3 weeks, we'll pay you. After 2 weeks, they'd be knocking on the door. You sure you don't need an analysis of that report, you know? And you're like, no, we told you go home for 2 weeks. And you're like, but I don't know, I was thinking I could run another analysis of that if you want. You know, I could even stay over a couple hours. And you see people like that in companies. Like I was in the diamond cutting. I learned diamond cutting and in 47th Street in New York. And this is the diamond cutting is all done by Hasidic Jews, right? So I'm up in this diamond cutting office. I'm the only Irish guy in the whole Diamond Dealers Club. And they're all teaching me how to cut diamonds. And they're working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, you know. And there's this guy across from me named Moshe, you know. And when you cut diamonds, sometimes you share the same wheel and you sit across from each other on these high chairs. And you pushing this diamond into the wheel, you know. And I said, and then you talk. If you get a hard diamond, you just talk because there's nothing to do. And you say, Moshe, you know, how come you staying here so late at night? He says, well, you know, I have to work. I have to support my family, you know. And you say, well, you can't make enough money during the day to support your family. He says, well, actually I can, you know. So don't you miss your family? He says, you know, aren't you married, you know? And he says, that's the reason I'm here, you know. But what has dawned on me after a few years in business is that a lot of the people who work overtime are just doing it because they want to. Because life is so hard outside of work. Life is so hard at home. So a lot of people are just working overtime because they don't want to be thrust into the realization that they don't have anything else to do. They don't have anything else meaningful to do. Okay? So that's the normal situation. 50% of the people are doing something they don't want to do. They're being employed or used. 30% are there because they enjoy the work as opposed to being anywhere else that's less pleasant than that, like home. And then maybe 20% are actually enjoying what they do. And those are usually the owners of the company in a way. Being an owner is an interesting idea because then you sort of can't blame anybody else for work. You're there because you enjoy it. You're there doing what you want to do usually. I mean, oftentimes the owner of a company. So the idea of servant of the world is that we're going to talk about a process where you begin this process by trying to give back to the world that has given us so much in our lives. You try to change your view of the transactions of life to say, I must now try to give back something to the world which is working to death for me. And what I wanted to say is, towards the end of that process, you can switch careers completely. You see? The idea is that towards the end of that process, the world starts to give to you again. You see, there's a whole cycle that happens. You've been boga, you've been consuming. And then at some point in your life, you reach a kind of maturity and you say, now I'm going to give. I'm going to give to others. And you make it a little slice of your time. You start to devote to giving to others. And you'll see that the way Sauer works is that in this class, what you're going to learn is how to give to others in a way which is most exciting and fun for you, personally. So you're giving to others and you're doing something which you most enjoy in your whole life. Then at some point, the cycle comes back and you can actually switch careers. So the idea is that. The idea is that at a certain point in the process of giving to others, you can make that your new career and you can become your own boss and the owner of your own company. So you can say that what we're trying to do is make everybody the boss of their own do-gooder company. you become the boss of your own do-gooder company. And you support yourself quite comfortably in the act of trying to pay the world back. Okay, so the idea is, there's this thing in diamond business too, which my boss taught me, the great, brilliant Ofer Azerman, Israeli from New York. I once heard him on the phone, like he's on the phone, and at that time we were running on a $50,000 loan from a guy in England, from a Turkish Jewish guy in England, and he loaned us $50,000. We don't have a penny. He couldn't pay me sometimes for like 4 weeks at a time, and I would just keep working and adding the bill up, you know. But we're working away, and we get a call from a company like JCPenney, and they say, Ofer, we want to order 10,000 of this love ring. If you've ever seen a love ring, they look like hippie things. You know? This is, and every company made one because you could sell like 20 a year or something. And there's a diamond in here. And then it's a big ring like this. And he gets a phone call from JCPenney, and this is a new buyer, JCPenney. And she doesn't know this ring's been around for 30 years and it's out of style. She says, Ofer, I want to buy 10,000. 10,000 of these rings. You know? So, you know, if you were a normal businessman, you'd say, sure. And you'd take out all your old stock and you'd make some more stock and you'd throw in the worst diamonds you could find into them. And you would get rid of all that excess gold stock. And it's just a good way to dump excess gold stock and diamonds. You know, all your old yellow, brown diamonds. So, I mean, everybody would normally take an order like that and just laugh because you know they're not going to sell it. Or they'll end up discounting it at the store in Sedona, the outlet store in Sedona for $10 a ring because it costs $12 to melt it down. So here's Ofer on the phone and he says, no, I won't sell it to you. I won't sell it to you. And the buyer's upset. I mean, this would save our company. This would make us have enough money to pay off our loan and actually start making money. And Ofer says, no, I won't sell it to you. And she's like angry. And I hear this lady on the speakerphone, and she's like angry. She's saying, Ofer, I can't believe it. You know, I'm just trying to get you to sell me something that you make money off of. He says, I'll make money, you won't be able to sell it. You know? And then later you'll be unhappy. In other words, a good business deal should benefit both parties. It has to benefit both parties. Like anytime you do business, you should always make sure that both parties are getting success. That's the whole idea, that you don't do business unless the other person is getting something also. And the idea about a do-gooder company is that it works out perfectly. By doing goodness to others, by helping others, you will find inevitably that that's the best way to reach your own happiness. You can't really become happy, and you can't be successful unless you're trying to make other people successful. And one idea for that, one way to make sure that you're successful, is to do something that you enjoy. So we're going to talk about an idea called calm. I'm going to put some Tibetan words up on the board, and I'm going to ask you to say them, and then you'll get used to it. Say calm.
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 Calm means a lot of things, and I think some of you have been in a class recently where you had this word. But calm means something inside of you, a seed inside your mind, something inside you. You could call it a propensity. You could call it an inner seed. But everybody has them. Like if you have a calm for playing piano when you're a child, and then you get to take music classes, you'll just pick it up and you'll be able to play piano very well. Later in your life, the calm starts to ripen. We call calm sepa. Say calm sepa.
Calm sepa.
Sepa means that the calm, this seed inside your mind, is developed during your lifetime. So the idea, the very first idea of being a servant of the world, is to find some way of serving the world which makes you most happy. Okay? So the first requirement of being a servant of the world is to identify your own calm. You have to find your own calm. And that's very difficult sometimes, okay? Like you have to find the one thing that you naturally gravitate towards, the one thing that makes you really happy. And that's absolutely essential, okay? You're in the business now of designing your own do-gooder company. And you should do good to others in the way that fits your own calm the best. And so you have to go looking inside you and find your calm. And everybody's calm is different, okay? Like the idea of Sao, the idea of servant of the world, is that you are trying to design that thing which you would most like to do, the thing that you would most enjoy doing in the world. And you have to look inside of yourself. And that's the first requirement, okay? So your first homework for this first class, which is serious, okay? Because the next class I'm going to ask everybody what their calm was. You have to go home and figure out what your calm is. You know, what's your calm? What's the thing you most enjoy doing? And then we're going to design your company around that. Okay? Like your product is going to be taking care of other people, serving other people. That's going to be your product. The delivery system is going to be your calm. Okay? Like how you give that product to the world is going to depend on what makes you happy. What's the thing you most enjoy doing? Okay? And it's very rare in their lives that people get a chance to make a big switch, right? I mean, you sort of get stuck in a pattern and then it's difficult to switch. The idea of calm is you go home tonight and you decide what it is that you most enjoy doing. Like, I'll just take a guess looking around the room, okay? Like, I have no idea. I don't know your calm very well. It takes an enlightened being to look at a person's calm. But somebody like an enlightened being, they say in the old days, Buddha could just look at somebody and he saw their calm, you know, which they said is like, in the scripture it says it's like finding those little animal tracks inside a stone. Like, they thought that fossils were like spirits that went into a stone and got trapped. And then when you break it open, you find they call it the footprint of the spirit. And so all the scriptures say that Lord Buddha looks into people like a person with X-ray eyes could look into a stone and see the spirit's footprint. So like Lord Buddha could just walk up to people and say, oh, I see your calm, you know, I see what you really want to do in life. Okay. So like say somebody was attracted to gardening, like you know, they could do anything with their morning, but somehow they're always finding an excuse to come up here and work in the garden in the morning. You know what I mean? And it's the things that you make excuses for to do is what your calm is. You know, like I know most people, if you say, "Did you do your meditation in the morning?" They say, "No, I didn't have time." And you say, "Well, did you do your yoga?" And they said, "Oh, well, you know, I wasn't feeling too good, so I didn't do my yoga." You know, and then you say, "Did you do that computer work you were talking about?" Oh man, it was 8 hours, I couldn't get off the computer, I stayed up till 2 o'clock. I just had to do this computer thing, you know. Like it was really pressing and everybody wanted it and I knew I was the only one who could do it and so I knew I had to take responsibility. And I had to spend the 10 hours doing this computer work and then that shows they have a calm for computer work, you know. I mean, people do what they want to do, right? Especially people who, what do you call it? Kvetch about it. You know, like, oh, I had to spend all night doing the reading for the new Uttara Tantra course, you know, and the computer wasn't working. I had to check 12 different books to get the right quotations, and I had to work, you know, and I had to miss my meditation, and I didn't have time to read, and I didn't get ice cream either, and, you know, and that means you're getting close to your calm. Okay, so you have to go home and think about what it is you like to do so much that you would make excuses about why you had to do it 12 hours extra. Okay? It's probably not yoga then if you're trying to get out of yoga, right? It's probably not meditation if you are constantly shorting your we can't do it an hour today, we got to do 45 minutes today because we got such and such happening in the afternoon. I mean, that's a sign that that's not your calm. Okay, so your first job to become a servant of the world is to identify your own calm. Okay, what would really make you happy? Like if tomorrow they said, you only have to do what you really enjoy. And you have to think, what is it that you would go home and keep doing for hour after hour? Even if someone told you you had to eat, you wouldn't do it. And even if someone told you you have to drink something now, you'd say, oh, give me 10 more minutes, you know. Find the thing in your life that you keep saying, give me 10 more minutes about. And that's your calm. So your first job for Sao is to find your own calm. And that's a homework. That's something you have to do, each of you have to do. Okay? The second part, say Changsen. Changsen. Changsen means, Chang means enlightened. Sen means mind. Changsen means enlightened mind. But I think those of you who have studied this idea in old Buddhist books, what it means is the desire to bring other people happiness. The ultimate desire to bring happiness to every living being is called Changsen. It's that idea that the world has been helping you. People have been giving their precious life for you, your whole life. Even from the time that you were in your mother's womb. You know, your mother was walking around with you for 9 months, taking care of you. Even before you were born, somebody was taking care of you, constantly, and making sure that you were happy. So now it's time to give back. And again, the principle behind Jangsen, or the desire to give back to the world, is that if you don't do this, you just become a consumer, you get older, and then you die. You just consume, you work, you consume, you age, you die. And then you don't really get to the real point of a human life. You don't really get to the real essence of a human life. And then you never feel contented or satisfied. So the idea of Sao is that you figure out your calm. You figure out what you most enjoy doing. And then you apply Changsen. Changsen means, I'm going to serve other people. I'm going to help other people back by doing what I most enjoy doing. So there has to be 2 elements in your do-gooder company. Okay? 2 elements. 1, you have to produce a product which makes other people happy. Your product is other people's happiness, really. Okay? It's a very, very interesting concept. Once you start this Sao idea, once you sign up for this, once you go through the training, once you begin to develop your own do-gooder company, your product is making other people happy. Okay? What you supply is giving other people happiness. Okay? Somebody told me, John Stillwell in New York, right? He came up to me one day, he said, this ACI stuff is great. This is one of our little projects, right? I said, why? He says, you never run out of customers. You know? I mean, you're just giving away happiness. And there's miserable people are endless. You know, unhappy people are endless. You will never run out of customers. Your company will constantly be producing its product, and you'll never have to worry about customers. They're always there. Ken Rinpoche used to say something very funny. We would drive by a liquor store. He'd say, liquor stores, they got it covered. You know, I said, what do you mean? Are you kidding? When people get miserable, they go to a liquor store, you know, they drink liquor. They got it covered, you know. I said, I don't get it. He said, no. Then when they're celebrating and they're happy, they drink liquor too. So whether people are miserable or whether people are happy, they're still drinking liquor, you see. It's a great business, you know. He was just kidding, right? We're producing a similar product in Sao. The idea is you're producing other people's happiness. And there's an unlimited customer base. Okay? Unlimited customer base. Also, what John said, which is interesting, is there's not much competition. Okay? There's not a lot of competition. Like, you don't have to worry. You're basically giving away a product for free that will make people happy. And sadly, there's very few people who want to do that, you see. We made a joke that if Ford and Chevrolet and Toyota all understood the concepts behind Sao, then they would be competing to give cars away to the third world. You know, there'd be a competition. Like the stock market wouldn't report how much they were worth. The stock market would report how much of their net worth that Chevrolet company gave away. General Motors gave away 3% of their net worth today to Mongolia to help buy ambulances for hospitals there. You know, and then that would be the Dow index of do-gooding. You know, and if they really understood what makes wealth, what makes money, then actually companies would operate that way. And that's the principle behind SAO. That's how SAO works. So those are the two main ideas. One is that your product is to make other people happy. And then secondly, is to use something which makes you happy. Okay? Everyone has their own come. And so it might be that you find a way to, if you're attracted to music, for example, then you might find a way to make people happy who are sad with music, you see? Like you might go to nursing homes and play music. You might decide to develop a little do-gooder company whose product is to take music to nursing homes or something like that, okay? And that would be your little do-gooder company. And at first the company would run on a net loss, you know? Like you'd have to pay for the guitar and no one at the nursing home is paying you, okay? And so you're, you know, it's an investment. It's a capital investment in a new company. And you put in the money for your guitar and you go and play at nursing homes and it looks like you're not making anything. But if you do it as a sound, if you serve other people as a project, it's like your own little company. It produces happiness through producing music for old people, something like that. And if you keep it up long enough, the idea of this course is to show you how to get support for that and maybe then switch over to your whole activity in your life is coordinating groups of musicians to go to hospitals and nursing homes, something like that. That would be an example of a SAO kind of company. Okay? And then it would start, what I say is that due to the laws which run the universe, if you kept it up for a while, you would be able to switch over to that as your career. And you'd be making music, which is what makes you happiest. And you'd be making it for other people, which makes them happy. And that would be your perfect niche in life. So the idea of SAO is to find your perfect niche in life. I wanted to give some examples of SAO operations that are going on in the world, okay? Like people who have already done this kind of stuff. And I thought it would give you some ideas about how it works. I guess you could say one is Asian Classics. Let's call it the Asian Classics Input Project. I'm just going to give you an example of a SAO company, you know? Like a little history of a SAO company. How does it work? So the idea of this project, Asian Classics Input Project, was founded about, I guess it's about 16 years ago, almost 20 years ago now, that this project was founded. And the idea was that due to the invasion of Tibet by armies from other countries, a lot of the books in Tibet were burned and destroyed. And in Tibet, they didn't have fictional books. There weren't any books of fiction. All the books were about doing good things for others, how to develop compassion, how to develop meditation, things like that. I mean, all of the books were these very, very beautiful scriptures about how to help other people, how to develop spiritual qualities. And the books were burned by this army that entered Tibet. So the idea of this project was to go out and try to find any books that got out of the country before Tibet fell, and then try to preserve those books. And then the idea was to expand into having the books put in by Tibetan refugees themselves, like taking computers to areas just outside of Tibet where refugees were pouring over the borders and needed income. And the idea was to teach them how to use computers, and then get copies of the manuscripts that were missing, and then have them learn to type them themselves. And that was the idea of this project. And this is a typical SAO idea, you know? Like you're serving or you're trying to save something valuable, And to do so, you help some other people. And then the idea is to find resources in creative ways, okay? Like nobody's going to pay you normally to go sit on the Tibetan border and teach people to use computers to save Tibetan books. This is not going to happen. And that's one of the principles of Sao, okay? It's not going to happen that there's going to be a big financial backing right away. And you just have to accept that as a fact, okay? There's not that many people in the world who would die to make sure that Tibetan refugees had computers to save their books. It's just not going to happen. There are a few large foundations that might entertain some kind of proposal like that. But on the whole, if 60,000 people in the New York City area got a hold of $15, they would go to Jets Stadium and watch a football game and spend the money that way. And then they'd say, I don't have any money left over to do that. That sounds nice to help refugees, but I had to go to the football game today, you know. And, you know, if you go around and ask people for $20 donations, they'll say no. If you say, would you like to go to a movie tonight and a dinner, they'll say yes. And that's just the way the world is. So the idea of this kind of project, a Sao project, is that you have to be creative in how you raise the money for it. It's difficult. You have to think of ways to raise the money for it. So one of the things we did with this project, we went to a chemical bank in New York, and we got to the computer manager, and we said, you change computers in this company every 3 years, right? They said, yeah, we do. And we said, what do you do with the old computers? They said, well, we have a storehouse in the 15th floor of this building in New York City, and it costs us money to pay people to throw the computers out. Like they have toxic parts in them, and they were paying people to take the computers to the dump in New Jersey, right? So then you just make a deal where you rent a truck and you back it up to their skyscraper, and you get the guy to bring them all down in the freight elevator, and you load 30 computers onto the truck, and then you go talk Air India into shipping them to India for free or something like that. So the idea is that you have to be creative about how you raise funds for a project like Sao. And that's one of the skills that we're going to talk a lot about. So in the case of this project, a lot of it's been going now for 16, 17 years. We've saved about over 5,000 books and put them on CDs and given them away in the world. And then all the funding has come through creative means, like not the normal means. What I'm not proposing in this series is to teach you how to go to a large foundation and ask them for money. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work, okay? A Sao person has to be more creative, okay? You have to have creative ideas on how you're going to raise money. But this is just one example of a Sao project. At its peak, like before we did the 3-day retreat, we were getting salaries for, I think, 5 people through this project in America, and we were supporting, at its peak, we were supporting 14 different computer centers in India with a couple hundred people working there. So it's possible to raise the funds. You have to be creative, and you can't do that if you don't have what? Come. Okay? If you're not working in your own come, you won't be able to raise the money. Because why? You don't believe in it. You just don't believe in it. You see, if you really want to be a Sao, if you want to be a servant of the world, you've got to find something that you really believe in, okay? And that's just the whole idea, something you believe in. I like to call it, to me it's passion. To me, you have to have a passion for something. You have to have a passion for something. And it's not like you should go out and start doing something and try to develop a passion for it. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You have to try to identify your calm or your passion. Before you start any kind of Sao project, before you even have a dream of trying to get something going to help other people, you have to find out what you have a passion for. Because otherwise you won't be able to do it. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You have to identify what you have a real passion for. If you don't have a real passion for anything, you have to get the next best thing. You know, you have to find the thing that you totally enjoy. If it's not a passion, at least it's a total enjoyment. But one thing I warn you in advance is that if you're not passionate about the thing that you're doing, you won't be able to succeed at Sao. Okay? Whatever way you choose to serve others, you have to find out what you're totally passionate about. And that takes some self-analysis. You know, like most people have been forced by circumstances throughout their life to do things that they don't have a passion for. Like most people are forced by circumstances to, they get into some kind of job, or they get into some kind of family thing, or they get into some kind of other situation that they don't really have a passion for. And then, because they're so busy all day, and because of the demands of their job or their other relationships, or they don't ever get to really try what they have a real passion for. And the idea of Sao is to find the thing that you have a passion for, your calm. If you can't do that, you shouldn't come to the next class, because it won't work. Okay? This idea doesn't work if you don't have a passion for it. Okay? If you're not totally in love with what you want to do, like in this case, the people who founded this project were totally in love with Tibetan books. You know, like they would die for a Tibetan book. And at the beginning, there was two people, which brings me to another thing. There's another principle in the South. Say Laksam? Laksam? Laksam means, it's a kind of attitude in the Tibetan books, the ancient Tibetan books. And what it boils down to is, I'm going to do this if nobody in the world helps me. Okay? I don't care. This thing is important to me. It comes along with passion, I think. You know, like the people who started the Asian Classics Input Project, they had Laksam about that idea. And you've got to have Laksam about your new idea. Your idea for your new do-gooder company, you have to have Laksam about it. Like you have to be decided in your mind the following. If nobody in the world helped me the slightest bit, I would still, that's okay, she's okay. I would still do this thing, okay? Like if I was down to my last dollar, I would still do this thing. If I was struggling to do this thing and nobody in the world thought it was important, if nobody in the world wanted to help me, if the whole world suddenly decided I was a bad person and tried to stop me from doing it, tried to block me or obstruct me from doing this thing, I don't care. I think it's important. You know, like for example, saving the books, okay? And I know with that project, you know, the people who worked on it, they would go to some, you know, government agency, Tibetan government agency, and say, can you help us? We're trying to feed your refugees. And we know you have certain books to input. Would you help us? And they say, no. We're not interested, you know. Then you just have to turn around and go somewhere else. Okay, so part of the idea of Sao, Laksam means, you're, what do you call it? Mindopa. You're like, Mindopa means you can't be turned, nobody's going to discourage you. Undiscourageable, okay? If you don't have that, you won't make it. You won't make it, okay? In your own little do-gooder company. You have to be totally undiscourageable. You have to believe in what you're doing so much that, in Tibet they say Nagudak. You know Nagudak? I'll demonstrate Nagudak. You're entering the door to ask for money for your project. Oh. And then, bam! Nagu means nose, duck means smashed. And in Tibetan, Nagudak means the guy slammed the door in your face and you got your nose smashed. So if you're going to be a Sao, servant of the world, you got to have Laksam. Laksam means I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what anybody does. I think it's important. And the idea, if you're not doing it for other people, you won't be able to get Laksam. Okay? if the project doesn't involve helping other people, you won't be able to get Laksham. You will fail. You'll get discouraged. The better your do-gooder company is, the more important your do-gooding is, the more vital to the world your particular happiness product is, the more obstacles you will get. Just absolutely is true. Okay? If you don't get obstacles, maybe you're in the wrong business. Okay? Maybe it's a sign that you're in the wrong product. You know, maybe you should go a little higher or something. But you will get a lot of obstacles. And so, if you don't have those two ideas, I want to pay the world back, I'm doing this for other people. And if you don't have calm, if you haven't identified the one thing that you have passion towards, you won't make it. You won't be able to do it. So you have to have those elements. You have to have passion for the thing, and then you have to have Laksham, which is like, I don't care if nobody in the world will help me, I'll do it myself. What I'm saying is that a lot of times people who start off on a do-gooder project try to get other people to help them. You know, they get 3 or 4 friends and they say, let's do this thing to help Tibetan refugees, you know, by taking computers that people have to pay to get rid of and sending them over there for free, and then saving all the Tibetan books and saving the Tibetan refugees too. Like, that sounds like a good idea, and we can get enough support that we don't have to work at another job after a while, okay? Like, that's a perfect self project. But it doesn't work. What will happen after a few weeks or months is that one person will lose interest out of the 3 or 4. And what you have to be, if you're in charge of that, you have to be like Laksham. You have to be like, I don't care if everyone quits. I don't care if I'm the last person here. You know, I'm going to do it. So those are like elements I think you have to have. You have to believe in your idea so much that if everyone else quit around you, you would still do it. If no one helped you, you would still do it. If it came down to you having to go get another job to support your do-gooder company, you would do it. Okay? That's important too. At the beginning, nobody's going to pay you to do good. Like, it's very rare. And in fact, if you can find some wealthy foundation or wealthy person to help you, it's not healthy. It doesn't work. It doesn't stay. It doesn't work to find one person who has a lot of money to help you do a project. What you want to find is like a broad-based support of normal people who will give you a little bit of help. And then you build up like that. It's like when we had the diamond business, we had a customer called Mervyn's in California, and we supplied half their jewelry. And it was like, I think, a $30 million a year account. And that was half of our sales at the time. And one day they just backed out. One day the buyer changed. And a new buyer came in, and this buyer had allegiance to some other company. And we lost half our sales in 1 hour. And so really, if you don't have Laksham, if you're not willing to go it on your own, and to keep paying for it through your own expense at the beginning, it's not going to work in the long run. Okay? You can't find one wealthy individual or one big foundation and think that that's going to run your do-gooder company. It doesn't work that way. You have to find, because if they leave, then you collapse. You have to find a broad-based support for what you're doing. I think maybe so I give you that idea that you have to go home and find the thing that you most love to do, and then you have to find a way to do it to help other people. Okay? So that until you do that, we don't have a place to start from, you know. And what happens is, like, I was working in a company, I was selling diamonds, right? It was a diamond selling company. And I wanted to work on this text project. You know, I wanted to save Tibetan books. And for the first, for the first 10 years I had to pay for it myself. And I wanted to have a school in New York where people could come and study Tibetan stuff and study ancient books and learn ancient wisdom. And then for the first, diploma how many years? 5 years? You're on your own. You know, you have to pay for the Xeroxes yourself, you have to pay for the space to rent yourself, you have to pay for the school, you have to pay students will come and need dinner, and you have to pay for that, and students will want to stay over late after class and discuss their problems, and you have to do that, and there's nobody to take care of the accounting or the taxes, or, you know, what I mean is, at the beginning, you have to be willing to do all the work yourself. Okay? And it has to be that important to you. Let's say you've identified some kind of project you want to start. Like, let's say you're living near a city called Tucson. And let's say you've determined that that there's no good place there to get books about stuff like Sao. Okay? Like there's no one place where people can come and get books about deeper things of life. Okay, look, we'll call it like, what do you want to call it? A bookstore of some kind. But I don't want to say, I want to say like a deeper bookstore, you see? Like we've been negotiating with Doubleday recently, and we had 3 books that we offered them. They asked us to write 3 books. One turned out to be 800 pages before it was done, and they called it off. They said, forget it, we don't want an 800-page book. They said, write a shorter one. So we did a 400-page book. They said, 400 pages, who buys a 400-page book? Can you do it in 100 pages? You know? And it's very interesting that there are these large corporations that control what books get into bookstores. You know? And the bookstores are telling the corporations that we don't want any books that sell for more than $10. That's after a 100% markdown for the seller, which means they have to sell to the company for $3. So they price the book at $5 and then they sell it for $10. So they want a book that can be made for under $3, which means you can't have a book larger than 100 pages. So because people want to buy a book for more than $10, nobody in America can get to a normal bookstore a book more than 100 pages, because it's not financially viable. Now, if it takes more than 100 pages to give an important idea to somebody, you're just out of luck. They don't want it, because it just doesn't work out financially. So suppose you're like a person who thinks that that's not such a good thing, and you want to sort of carry books that have deeper meaning to them and are not restricted to 100 pages. Okay? Like you want to try to, you've determined that in Tucson, Arizona, there's no real bookstore where people can go and get books that are sort of very important for their life, but more than 100 pages long. Okay? Or something like that. I think the first thing you have to do is determine whether you have calm or not about this idea. You know, do you have calm? Would you die to do this idea? You know, is it to you the most important thing in the world? And if it's not, then I don't think you should do it, you see? Because in the long run, you won't be able to do it. You don't have calm. You have to find the calm, whatever you have calm for. What's the other idea that you needed? Changsam, what's that?
Do it for all of them.
Yeah, you should be doing it for somebody else, okay? If you're doing it for yourself, this whole thing doesn't work, okay? If you're just doing it for yourself, you can just forget it. If you're interested in just doing something for yourself, go start a company somewhere. You know, my boss, one day I came in and he was sitting on a huge desk, and there were hundreds of rings on the desk, you know? And he was deciding which ones to melt down and which ones to market, you know? And he's just throwing them into 2 bags, you know? And I'm like, Ofer, you know, you're going to mess up the rings, you're going to scratch them. And he says, I don't care. And I said, what do you mean you don't care? And he says, I hate this stuff. I could care less about jewelry, you know. This guy he spends his whole life doing this product. He hates jewelry. He thinks it's the dumbest thing in the world. You know? He says, people want it, you know. I'm just making it because people want it, you know. That's in a way doing it for others, but that's not quite the idea. You know, in Sao, the idea is, A, you really love this thing you're dealing with. Like you personally love deeper books, you know. You just personally love deeper books. That's the first thing. If you don't want to get into something you love, you shouldn't be doing it anyway. You should just go get another normal job. And you can deal with stuff that you don't really love. You know? The idea of Sao is that you do something you love. And then secondly, it should be for other people. You know, the whole idea has to be for other people. Something about it should be to serve the people who have given us so much. So the idea of Sao is that whatever you choose to do, it should be something you're passionate about and something that helps other people. I think we'll take a little break there. Yeah. We'll take like a 10-minute break and then come back, and we have a little more to do, and we'll finish on time, like around, I think, by 9 o'clock. Okay. So take a break. You guys ready? So, your idea is to make a deeper bookstore, and you have all these. I just want to repeat the basic ideas you have to have. One is Changsam, right? Changsam. You have to have the basic idea that you're serving other people, or it won't work. You won't be able to put the heart into it that you need to. There has to be some idea that other people will benefit from this thing. So the whole principle behind Sao is that you don't try to do, you know, you're not trying to do some kind of business where you're just trying to sell products that might even hurt people, or you know, like, most of the products that people ask for aren't very good for them. And what you're trying to do is supply something which will really make people happy. So Changsam is some kind of attitude from the very day that you start planning, that it should be a place that helps other people in a real way, with things that they really need. What was the other idea? Changsam? Paksam? Paksam means, it's a Chicken Little thing, you know. When you start your bookstore, there'll be 50 people there at the first meeting. And everybody will say, I really want to do this, you know. And there'll be plenty of people at the first 3 meetings or so. And then it starts to go down, you know. Paksam means, in your mind, you're ready to just do it yourself. Okay? If people show up, that's nice. I can use the help. If they don't show up, I'm still going to do it. So all of your ideas about budget, all your ideas about hours, all your ideas about the size of your bookstore should be centered around what you can really do yourself, and maybe with 1 or 2 other people. Okay? Because in the end, with most of these kind of do-gooder companies, you're going to end up doing most of the work yourself or with 1 or 2 other people. And we'll talk about the idea of practice with that, but that's another story. What was the third Tibetan word we had tonight? Come. Sometimes it's just spelled without the H. You got to do something that you really enjoy. You have to really enjoy the idea of a bookstore. Before you get into the business, before you have the first meeting, you got to sit down and really decide if that's really what you want to do. And I think at that stage it's very important not to let anyone talk you into anything else. You know, don't let anybody tell you it's not practical. Don't let anybody tell you it can't be done. Don't let anybody tell you other people never did it before. You know, I mean, part of the idea of Sao is your dream, your wish, the dream of your life, lifetime's dream. Why? Mitapa. Say mitapa.
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 Mitapa means life is short, right? Mitapa means impermanence, literally. You're going to die, okay? You're going to die, you're going to get old. I mean, those of us who are over a certain age, 40, 45 is it? You start to lose your energy, okay? Just whoever. Under normal circumstances, people start to lose their energy. People who have even a lot of energy, you start to lose it at a certain age. what I mean to say is you don't have time to wait to do the thing you really want to do. Okay? You don't have time to wait until later to do the thing you really want to do. I mean, the idea of Sao is that you're being released from the thing you don't really want to do. What's that Annie DeFranco says? What's that song? It's something about, what is she saying? It's something I don't want to do. Most of the things I do, I don't really want to do. Most of the things I'm doing are not things I really want to do. You listened to this song 100 times. How's it go? Anyway, the point is, life is too short to do things you don't really want to do. You know, I mean, under certain circumstances, you don't have a choice. You have a family, or you have other commitments or other responsibilities that you have to discharge before you can do what you really want to do. But mostly people are just kind of lazy, and they're not doing what they really want to do because they're just used to what they do. Mitapa means you have to think that you're going to die. Okay? You will die. And past a certain age, it gets hard to start a new idea and a new project. You know, you have to go for what you want to go for now, and you don't have time to fool around. So find calm. Find what you really enjoy. Okay? Find what you really enjoy. The last thing I wanted to talk about was, if you have calm and you get really excited about something, and if you have laksam and you find, changsam, and you find something that really helps other people, like this bookstore idea, and you have laksam in the sense that you don't care if all the people who promised to help you never show up that morning. You plan ahead that if nobody shows up, you can still do it. Okay? It's like defensive driving. You know, you just plan that the other guy's going to do something stupid. You know, when you're approaching another car on the highway, you're thinking about how can I get out of his way if he's drunk. You know, and the same thing with your little do-gooder company. Like you design it up front that if all the people who said they were going to help you financially, or morally, or with their work are not going to show up on the first day. Usually it takes till the third day for it to happen, but let's just say the first day. So you got to be ready in your mind, which means you got to be ready to have tsindu. Say tsundu.
Tsundu.
Tsundu means, it means hard work, effort. Okay? And there's something that happens when you start up your own new little do-gooder company. People will say, you gotta have tsundu, right? I mean, if you've ever been there for a startup of a corporation, our corporation started with 3 people, 3 of us, and the $50,000 loan. At the end, we had about 800 employees in the United States and a couple thousand elsewhere, and it made about 125. It sold 125 million a year. So is it tsundu that makes the difference? You know, is it tsundu to if you stay up all night? Does that mean you have tsundu? She said, no. Okay. It's very interesting. You see. And this is a trick that is part of the startup process, okay? Staying up all night is not where it's at, okay? Extra hours is not where it's at. It doesn't work that way, okay? You have to work smart and not long, okay? I mean, people will tell you if you want to start up a new idea, like a new bookstore, you're going to have to be up all night packing books, sending out orders, blah, blah, blah. You have to design it that it doesn't work that way. You can't sustain it. It's not healthy. You have to go about this project long term. Okay? Like there might be a few nights up, but mainly you should never do a long night. Okay? You have to plan better than that. Because you need to do practice. And that's the last thing we're going to talk about tonight. You have to maintain a daily practice. Okay, what does a daily practice mean? First, and this is something that we'll get into later. I mean, maybe some of the people watching especially don't have a daily practice. They don't know what a daily practice is. But it will involve three elements. One is some kind of meditation. Some kind of daily meditation. And it'll be part of this course that people will get training in that. If people who don't have that would get training in a basic morning meditation. So the idea of Sao, the idea of a servant of the world, is that you won't be good at it if you don't do some kind of daily contemplation for yourself. Okay? Like, we suggest half hour to 45 minutes, minimum, meditation. You have to have that. Number two, some kind of exercise. Okay? I mean, mostly we're talking maybe yoga or Tai Chi or something like that. Different hapki. Different people have different things, Aikido, whatever. But as part of your morning practice, your morning wind-up for work, for your do-gooder company, you have to do something to take care of your body. In the ancient Tibetan scriptures, the idea is if you aren't taking care of your physical body, then your inner body is not doing well. Your inner body consists of some kind of energy flowing through some kind of channels. That's connected to your thoughts. So you can't think smart if you don't feel well physically. If you're not taking care of your body physically, ultimately it will harm your ability to think. Now you can get away with that until about age 30 or 35 or something like that. You're just running on your old body's energy. The body that you were born with, the energy that you were born with. But past a certain age, if you don't do something every day to maintain the body, take good care of the body, then that'll actually affect your decision making. You won't be able to run a good company. You won't be able to run a good do-gooder company. Okay. Third idea is some kind of personal study. Some kind of personal study. Like some kind of inspiring thing that you read every day. A lot of people here are reading ancient Tibetan books, taking ancient Tibetan classes. Some are doing ancient Indian, Sanskrit. It could be Christian, it could be Jewish, it could be anything else, whatever you choose. But some kind of daily spiritual food for your mind. Because you need a place to draw your energy from. You need some kind of place to draw your inspiration from. If you're not doing some kind of personal study, which means putting yourself in a room with some great thinker from the past, you won't have the energy to do this new project. Okay? What I'm trying to say is that to help other people, you have to be able to work really hard. You have to be able to work really hard. It's hard work. You have to be able to put in the work that it requires. But never so much that you can't do your practice. Okay? Never so much that you can't do your practice. Because you will get tired, you'll have no inspiration to feed from, and sooner or later you'll just give it up altogether, and you'll lose it. Okay? You'll just lose it. People think, oh, I'll just cut my meditation short 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then I'll have more time to do my bookstore. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to have the juice that comes from the daily practice. If you short your daily practice, you'll give up your Sao work. Sooner or later you'll get tired and give up your Sao work. If you do your daily practice, you'll be fresher, have more energy, and you'll be more smart. You know? So instead of unpacking books all night, suddenly you realize that you could get the company that sells you the books to come in and unpack them for you or something like that. You know? Ideas will come to you for working more beautifully if you have done your morning practice. Okay? There's also something from the night before. okay, which is called sleep. Now, people make fun of it. People think it's not very important. There's a guy who was here a few minutes ago who laughed that I think doesn't get enough sleep. Somebody has to tell him about this. There's a thing that people think, somehow they think that if they're shorting their sleep, they're working harder. I'm more committed or devoted because I'm not getting enough sleep. You know, like people in corporations love to tell their bosses that, you know. I stayed till 10 last night, I didn't get till home till 12, I got up at 4 this morning to get here from New Jersey. You know, I'm unbelievable. I didn't get any sleep at all. I'm really dedicated, you know. And then we think that, people think that. Then what happens is you drink some coffee to keep your mind away. Then that hurts your body. That hurts your body over the long term. That hurts your inner channels. Then the thoughts running in the inner channels don't go straight. They don't work straight. And then you can't think straight. And then what happens? You give up your self. You know, at some point you're like, I don't know why I'm working for everybody else for free. You know, what's the point of doing that? You know, what I mean is you will lose your motivation. You won't be able to sustain dedication if you don't take care of your body and your practice. So, it starts the night before. You know, how much sleep do I need? I'm a tough guy, I only need 4 hours. Forget it. Oh, I'm tough, I only need 6 hours. I don't think so. I think most people need 7 or 8 hours. You know, I really think that. You can cheat if you're young. You can cheat if you take coffee, tea, and other kinds of stimulation to cheat your body. But over the long run, even in the scriptures, there are 4 kinds of food, right? One of them is sleep. You need sleep. So really, being a smart, sound business person begins the night before. You know, just get the sleep that you need. And don't pretend you need less than that. Then you can work for, like, Ken Rinpoche is what, 80? He's 83, right? 83, Tibetan way. And he's still got a lot of energy and he still does his work because he took care of himself. He's very, very good at taking care of himself. Like, he eats like, Nagarjuna said, you should eat like you're taking medicine. Kasai Mendam Dawarik means you should only take as much food as your body needs as if it were medicine, and not for pleasure. And he's very good at that, you know, like he just sets out the food and he says, this much I need of this much I need of this, take away the rest. You know, and then he takes it like taking vitamins, you know, he just judges what he needs. So you get enough sleep, you do your morning practice. And then you can do sound work. And if you don't have this element, I don't think you can do sound work very well. I don't think you'll be a good sound worker. You'll quit. You'll quit after a while. For some, you know, you'll get tired. You'll talk yourself into believing that this is not such a good idea to work for the world. You know, I don't want to be a servant of the world. I've had people come to me, I'm tired. You know, now I'm going to take a few years off and just get a regular job and buy a washing machine and, you know, like that and stuff. That's okay. What I'm saying is you can have a regular job and be doing so at the same time. But sooner or later you'll lose that motivation if you don't take care of yourself. And this is where the juice comes from. This is where the motivation comes from. So I have the last thing I'd like to say tonight. How many last things? You have to go home then. I think our next meeting is next Thursday instead of Friday. Because somebody has a Sal prison project and we're going to go talk out of prison, okay? But between now and then, I'd like each person to go home, think about your calm, okay? Think about your calm. What is your inner, deepest, most beautiful, inspiring, happy thing that you could ever want to do? And it doesn't have to be overtly spiritual. It could be, I like construction, you know. It could be I like cooking, you know. It could be I like making jewelry or pottery or something like that. But I want you to go home and come back next week with a piece of paper that says, this is the thing that I most enjoy doing. You know, this is what I would spend 8 hours doing if everyone else told me to go home, and I'd say, no, I got to get this done, you know. What is it that you love so much that you would do it and nobody could stop you from doing it? Then what we'll do at the beginning next week is we'll go through how you could use every one of those in a way to benefit other people. You know? Like, you start with your come. What is the thing that you most love to do? And then what we'll talk about next time at the beginning is what is a way you could do that and still be of immense benefit for other people. Okay? And that will bring us to a concept called Nangdom, which we'll talk about at the beginning next time. Nangdom means I have this idea about a project that would help others, and I have this other idea about a project that would help others. And you can either try to do both and do them both poorly, or you decide which one is more benefit for others. Okay? So part of being a good Sao is to develop the capacity about priority. Good, what do you call it? Do gooder priorities. You know, out of these two good things that I would like to do, out of these two things that I have come for, you know, out of these two things that I find exciting. Next week we'll talk about the element of you have to be able to choose which one is of more benefit for other people. Okay? And that'll, if you know it's of more benefit, then you'll be able to throw yourself into it with more power. And you won't give it up very easily. So we'll do that next time. There's a custom in a Tibetan class to everybody to close their eyes at the end. And maybe just think a little bit about all the people that you could help if you became a good Sao, servant of the world. Right? So we'll spend maybe a few minutes. Close your eyes and be silent. And then think about something you'd personally like to do right now that would be a benefit for others. And then in the Tibetan tradition, we dedicate this energy of this nice class together to that idea, other people. So think about other people for a few minutes. That's good. Good night.
I wonder if I could talk about the solstice ceremony.
Sure. Would you like to